I never cared much for social media. My wife, Allison, on the other hand, lived for it. Every morning, before I even finished my first cup of coffee, she would be scrolling through her phone, checking notifications, liking posts, and leaving comments on perfectly curated pictures of people she barely knew. It wasn't just a hobby for her, it was an obsession. She loved the validation, the likes, the attention. I used to joke about it, used to tell her she should get paid for all the hours she spent staring at that screen. She'd laugh, kiss my cheek, and tell me that it was just fun. I believed her. I shouldn't have. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought it was solid. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our shared responsibilities. We had 2 kids, a house, and years of memories together. I wasn't the most romantic husband in the world, but I worked hard to provide for my family. I was there. I was reliable. I was the kind of man who kept his promises. But apparently, that wasn't enough. It started with the pictures. Not the ones she posted. No, those were always polished and pristine, the kind of images that made it look like we had the perfect life. No, it was the one she liked, the one she commented on, the one she saved. I didn't pay much attention at first, because why would I? It was just social media, right? It wasn't real. Then I noticed a pattern. A name kept appearing, over and over again. Nathan Caldwell. A photographer. A man whose feed was filled with black and white portraits of women. Stunning, airbrushed, almost unreal in their perfection. Allison liked every single post. She left little comments under them. Things like, absolutely breathtaking. Your work is incredible. Wow, I would love to do a shoot like this someday. I didn't think much of it at first. She followed a lot of photographers. She liked art. It was normal. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Then one day, I saw a picture of her on his page. It wasn't just any picture. It wasn't one of those casual, candid shots that you take at a family gathering or during a vacation. It was something else entirely. It was intimate. She was looking straight at the camera, lips slightly parted, eyes smoldering. She was wearing a dress I had never seen before, tight, low-cut, revealing. Her hands were delicately placed on her shoulders, like she was peeling the straps off. The lighting was perfect, soft and golden, making her skin glow. It wasn't vulgar, but it wasn't innocent either. And the caption? Some women were made to be captured in the right light. I felt something inside me crack. It wasn't just the picture. It was the comments underneath it. Men leaving fire emojis, calling her beautiful. Women complimenting how sensual and elegant she looked. And then, there was Nathan's reply to one of the comments. She was a natural. Some people just belong in front of the camera. My wife liked that comment. That was the moment I knew. I confronted her that night. I tried to be calm, but my voice was already laced with something dangerous. Since when do you do photo shoots? I asked. She looked up from her phone, blinking, as if she had completely forgotten about the picture. Oh, that? Nathan asked me if I wanted a model for one of his projects. I thought it would be fun. You never mentioned it to me. She shrugged. It wasn't a big deal. Just a creative thing. You know, I love photography. I clenched my fists. Did you tell him you're married? She scoffed. Of course I did. I didn't believe her. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, pure, undiluted suspicion. My wife had been spending time with another man. A man who clearly thought she was beautiful. A man who knew how to capture her in ways I never could. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who turned into a paranoid wreck over something as simple as a photo. But then I made the mistake of checking his profile again. Another picture had been posted. This one was different. It wasn't posed. It wasn't staged. It was a behind-the-scenes shot, one of those candid moments people like to share to make things seem more authentic. My wife was laughing in the picture, her head thrown back, her body leaning toward him. Nathan was standing beside her, grinning, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. They looked comfortable, too comfortable. And then I saw it. The comments section. Someone had asked, "Are you two a thing?" Nathan had replied, with a single winking emoji. My stomach twisted. I got out of bed, grabbed my phone, and scrolled through my wife's Instagram. She had posted nothing about the shoot. No mention of it. No tags. No acknowledgement. Why would she hide it? Unless she had something to hide. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as I clicked on her messages. I had never gone through her phone before, never had a reason to. But now, my hand was shaking as I scrolled, searching for his name. There it was. Nathan Caldwell. I clicked on the conversation, and I saw everything. Flirty texts, inside jokes, pictures she had sent him, ones that weren't on his page, ones that were even more suggestive. And then the message that made my blood turn cold. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. There it was. The truth. Raw. Undeniable. Unforgivable. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The rage inside me boiled over, consuming every rational thought I had left. She was still sleeping peacefully beside me, completely unaware that her world was about to come crashing down. I wasn't going to wake her up just yet. No, I was going to let the anger simmer, let it build, let it burn. Because the moment she opened her eyes, she was going to see a version of me she had never seen before. Morning came, but I had already been awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, gripping my wife's phone so tightly my hand ached. The words on the screen seared into my brain like a brand. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall. Instead, I forced myself to breathe, to let the fire in my chest smolder instead of explode. She stirred beside me, stretching lazily, unaware of the storm building right next to her. Allison always took her time waking up. First, a soft yawn. Then, she'd fumble for her phone, checking notifications before even getting out of bed. It was a ritual, but today, her phone wasn't where she left it. Her hand patted the nightstand. Then again, she turned, eyes still heavy with sleep, and frowned. Where's my? I held it up. Looking for this? The second she saw the screen in my hand, something shifted in her expression. It was quick, so quick that if I hadn't been watching for it, I might have missed it. A flicker of panic. But then, she covered it up with a laugh. A soft, nervous chuckle. Why do you have my phone? I stared at her, my grip tightening. Do you want to tell me who Nathan is? Her body went still. A second of silence stretched between us. Then, she scoffed and rolled her eyes. Oh my God, are you serious? I didn't blink. Dead serious. She pushed herself up, leaning against the headboard. He's a photographer. You already know that. I turned the phone so she could see the message. Her own words staring back at her. I watched her expression carefully, waiting for the next move. She hesitated, but only for a moment. Then, her face shifted, her eyes widened, and her lips parted in practiced shock. Oh my God. She reached for the phone. That's not what it looks like. I yanked it away before she could grab it. You really want to go with that line? My voice was low, steady, but the rage was bubbling just beneath the surface. Because I've seen the pictures. I've seen the comments. And now I've seen the proof. Allison ran a hand through her hair, exhaling sharply. It's complicated. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Complicated? You think screwing around behind my back is complicated? Her hand shot up. I didn't. She stopped. Took a breath. It wasn't like that. I clenched my jaw. Then explain it to me. She hesitated. Just for a second. That was all I needed. I shook my head. You can't, can you? She bit her lip, eyes darting toward the door, as if she was considering bolting. I could almost see the thoughts running through her head, the calculations, the way she was trying to find the right words to manipulate the situation in her favor. Then, she exhaled sharply. It was a mistake. A mistake. A mistake. I let out a slow breath, forcing my fist to unclench. That's the best you've got? She swallowed hard. It wasn't supposed to happen. I got caught up in what? I snapped. In being worshipped? In feeling special? Her eyes flashed with something. Guilt? Anger? I couldn't tell anymore. I don't know, she admitted. It started as just photos. He made me feel beautiful. I stared at her, something cold settling in my gut. And I didn't? She shook her head quickly. That's not what I mean. I didn't answer. She shifted, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. I swear I was going to end it. I barked out a bitter laugh. Oh, that's rich. When? Before or after I found out? She flinched. I made a mistake, but I love you. I don't want to lose you. I stared at her, my mind racing. Love. What a pathetic word. She didn't love me. If she did, she wouldn't have let another man touch her, Wouldn't have let him take those pictures, wouldn't have snuck around behind my back like I was some idiot who would never notice. I felt something inside me snap. I got out of bed, tossing her phone onto the mattress beside her. You should start packing. Her face paled. No, wait. I didn't. I walked out of the room, out of the house, because if I stayed, I might do something I'd regret. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. I got in my truck and drove. No destination, no plan, just the open road and the roar of the engine to drown out the chaos in my head. My grip on the steering wheel was so tight my knuckles turned white. The rage inside me had no outlet, no release. It just sat there, festering, boiling, threatening to consume me. Allison's words still rang in my ears. It was a mistake. He made me feel beautiful. I swear I was going to end it. Every syllable felt like a fresh stab to the gut. I had no doubt in my mind that she was trying to spin it now, trying to make herself the victim. The kind of woman who begged for forgiveness, who swore it didn't mean anything, who promised she'd never do it again. But I had seen the messages, the way she spoke to him, the pictures she had sent, the way she had hidden it all from me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I pulled into an empty parking lot and just sat there, gripping the wheel, staring at nothing. My pulse was pounding in my ears. My mind kept circling the same thought over and over again. This wasn't just some random guy. This was a man she had chosen to parade around on social media. She had left comments on his posts, had shared his work, had practically advertised him to the world while sneaking around behind my back. The whole damn thing was public, and I had been too blind to see it. I grabbed my phone and opened Instagram. I typed his name, Nathan Caldwell. His profile popped up instantly, verified of course. Over 200,000 followers. His entire feed was filled with stunning women, half-naked, posed like goddesses, drenched in shadow and light. Each one with captions about beauty, about confidence, about the art of capturing a woman in her truest form. And right there, mixed in with all the others, was my wife. Smiling, posing. Some women were made to be captured in the right light. My blood boiled. I scrolled through the comments. Men drooling over her. Women complimenting how brave and confident she looked. And Nathan himself, replying to every single one like some smug, arrogant bastard who thought he owned her. I clicked on his tag posts. There she was again. Someone had reshared the image. The caption read, Nathan Caldwell really knows how to bring out a woman's sensuality. This one? Stunning. Fire, fire, fire. I felt sick. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't the kind of man who went online and aired his dirty laundry. But she had already put this out there for the world to see. She had turned herself into a spectacle. The only difference was she controlled the narrative. I was about to take that control away from her. I went back to Nathan's post, the one with Allison. I hit the comment button, my fingers moving before I could second-guess myself. Crazy how she never mentioned she was married. I wonder how many other models you've helped ruin their marriages. Then, I went to her profile. She had deleted her post from last night, probably in a panic after I confronted her. But she hadn't touched the comments she had left under his posts. I clicked on one, the one where she had written, "Wow, I would love to do a shoot like this someday." And I replied, "Guess you loved it a little too much. How long have you been sleeping with him?" I didn't stop there. I went to my own profile, one I barely used, and I made a post. A single screenshot. The message Nathan had sent her. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. And underneath it, my caption. My wife forgot to mention that she was married. Maybe this will jog her memory. Then I put my phone down and waited. It didn't take long. Within minutes, my phone started blowing up. Calls, messages, notifications flooding in. Allison's name appeared first. I ignored it. Then, her friends. Some of them probably trying to defend her. Others probably trying to get the gossip firsthand. And then, Nathan himself. I smirked. Oh, this was going to be fun. I answered. A deep voice came through the speaker. Hey man, I think there's been I cut him off. Shut the hell up. Silence. Then he sighed. Look, I get that you're upset, but you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I snapped. You thought you could screw around with a married woman and not get caught. But now? Now everyone knows what kind of pathetic home-wrecking fraud you are. It's not like that, he muttered. She told me you two were having issues. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, I bet she did. And you, being the slimy piece of garbage you are, thought you could take advantage of that. He was silent. Do me a favor, I said. Lose her number. Because if I ever see your name pop up in her messages again, this little social media mess, that'll be the least of your problems. I hung up before he could say another word. The rage inside me wasn't gone. Not even close. But for the first time since I'd seen those messages, I felt like I had done something. Like I had taken back a piece of what she had stolen from me. And then my phone rang again. Allison. I stared at the screen. I could already picture it. The panic in her voice. The tears in her eyes. The desperate attempts to make me believe she was sorry. I'll let it ring. Let her sit with the consequences for a little longer. Because this was just the beginning. The phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Call after call, message after message. A relentless flood of incoming noise. Allison had tried first. Over and over, her name flashing on the screen like a warning sign. Then came the texts from her friends, some of them defensive, others just hungry for details. Even her mother had reached out. None of them mattered. The wildfire had already started. Scrolling through Instagram, it was clear that the fallout was bigger than even I had anticipated. My post had gone viral, spreading through my circles and beyond. Strangers were commenting, some offering sympathy, others just there for the spectacle. But the most interesting part was the reaction under Nathan's post, the one with Allison's photo. People had started tagging me. They had seen my comment. They were asking questions. Some had their own stories about him, sharing tales of other women, other broken relationships. His reputation was being shredded in real time. Someone had even posted, "This guy's been doing this for years." Married women, engaged women, he doesn't care. Just another predator hiding behind a camera. And there, buried in the mess, was his attempt at damage control. He had deleted my comment. He had disabled replies on the post with Allison's picture. But it was too late. The internet never forgets. Screenshots were everywhere, being shared, reshared, dissected. The golden photographer, the so-called artist, was being exposed for exactly what he was, a snake. The text from Allison had started mild at first, short, desperate pleas for me to answer her, to talk to her. Then, as she saw my silence, the panic had started to set in. The messages got longer, more frantic. She was begging, swearing it wasn't what it looked like, tried to explain things in a way that would make her seem like less of a liar. There were apologies, attempts to justify, declarations of love. None of it mattered. When she realized I wasn't responding, the narrative changed. Suddenly, I was the villain. Suddenly, I was cruel for exposing her, childish for making it public, vindictive for not hearing her out. Her friends started messaging too, jumping to her defense. Some of them were outraged, telling me I was handling this all wrong, that marriage was private and should be worked out privately. Others pretended to be neutral, asking me to at least listen to her, to let her explain. Explain what exactly? The messages in her inbox? The way she looked in those photos? The way she had let another man worship her in front of camera and then told him how much she enjoyed it? She had done this. She had made the choices that led us here. I was just making sure she couldn't rewrite the story to make herself look like the victim. Then there was the call from her mother. That one made me hesitate. Unlike her daughter, she had always been good to me. She had welcomed me into their family, treated me like a son. So when her name appeared on my screen, I answered. There was no yelling on her end, no accusations. Just a long sigh, the kind that came from someone who had seen disaster coming but had been powerless to stop it. She asked if it was true. When I confirmed it, she didn't sound surprised, just disappointed. She muttered something about how Allison had always been like this, always chasing attention, always needing to be adored. Then, she said the words I hadn't expected. She admitted that her daughter had made a mistake. A huge, irreparable mistake. But then, she asked me to think before I made any final decisions. She knew I was angry. Anyone would be. She knew I had every right to walk away. But she also knew that once I did, there would be no turning back. That was the thing, though. There was already no turning back. What was left to save? The trust was gone. The respect was gone. Even if I wanted to forgive her, what was I supposed to do? Pretend I didn't know the way she had looked at another man? Pretend I hadn't read the words she had written to him? Pretend I could ever hold her in my arms again without wondering if she was picturing him instead of me. Her mother sighed again, realizing I wasn't answering. Then she told me Allison was a wreck, that she had been crying for hours, that she regretted everything. Of course, she regretted it. She regretted getting caught. But regret wouldn't fix anything. Regret wouldn't erase the messages or delete the photos. Regret wouldn't undo the fact that she had chosen to do this, had chosen to betray me, had chosen to give another man a version of herself that she had never offered me. She had made her choices, and now she was going to live with them. I hung up without another word. The silence in my truck felt heavier now, suffocating. My head was pounding. My chest was tight. This should have been the moment where I felt some sense of satisfaction, some kind of victory. I had exposed the truth. I had taken control of the narrative before she could twist it. I had made sure everyone knew exactly who she was and what she had done. So why did it still feel like I was suffocating? Because no matter what happened next, the fact remained. I had lost something that could never be repaired. The marriage she had set on fire was still burning, and I had no intention of putting out the flames. She would keep calling. She would keep crying. She would beg. She would plead. She would say all the right words, cry all the right tears. But words meant nothing when the damage was already done. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite history to make herself look innocent. I pulled out of the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands ached. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to salvage, only the wreckage of what once was. The drive home felt different. It wasn't the same house I had left that morning. The walls, the furniture, the pictures on the shelves, they all felt hollow now, like set pieces in a stage play that had long since ended. There had been warmth here once, security. Now, the place felt like a crime scene, every inch of it tainted with betrayal. Allison was waiting for me. She must have heard the truck pulling into the driveway because the front door opened before I even stepped out. Her face was blotchy, eyes red and swollen. She had been crying, probably for hours. Her posture was stiff, like she wasn't sure whether to run to me or stand her ground. The moment I shut the truck door, she started talking. I already knew what it would be. The same rehearsed lines. The same desperate attempts to fix what was already broken. The justifications, the apologies, the promises. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry for what she had lost. I walked past her without a word, stepping into the house. The air inside felt thick, suffocating. I could feel her trailing behind me, hesitant but determined. She kept talking, voice trembling. She said it had never meant to go that far. She said she had gotten caught up in the excitement, in the attention. She said it had been a mistake, that she would do anything to make it right. She had no idea that there was no making this right. There were things you couldn't take back, words you couldn't unsay, actions you couldn't undo. She wanted forgiveness, but she didn't deserve it. I walked into the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter just to keep myself steady. The rage hadn't left me. It hadn't dulled or faded. It was just there, simmering under my skin, waiting for an outlet. She was still talking, still pleading. I turned to face her. The sight of her disgusted me now, not just because of what she had done, but because of the way she was trying to twist it, trying to make it something smaller than it was. She didn't understand. She never would. She kept saying she loved me, that she had never stopped. Love wasn't supposed to feel like this. Love wasn't supposed to leave scars. She tried to reach for me. I pulled away. That hurt her, I could see it, but it didn't hurt nearly as much as what she had done to me. Her voice cracked when she said she didn't want to lose me. She had lost me the moment she let another man undress her with his camera. She begged me to talk to her, to tell her what I was thinking. There was nothing left to say. She didn't deserve an explanation. She didn't deserve closure. She had made her choice, and now she would have to live with it. The silence stretched between us. Her breathing was uneven, panicked. She wanted me to fix this, to patch up the mess she had made. But I wasn't going to. I finally spoke, my voice calm, controlled. She flinched at the coldness in my tone. I told her to pack a bag. She shook her head, eyes filling with fresh tears. She said she didn't want to go, that this was her home too. It had been. Not anymore. She kept saying it didn't have to be like this, that we could work through it, that we could rebuild. I didn't want to rebuild. I wanted to burn it all down. She broke then, sobbing, shaking. She said she had thrown everything away, that she hated herself for it, that she had never meant to hurt me. Intentions didn't change the past. Regret didn't erase betrayal. I watched her for a moment, feeling nothing but emptiness. She had wanted the attention, the thrill, the excitement. She had wanted to feel beautiful, desired. Now, all she had was ruin. She wasn't crying because she had lost me. She was crying because she had lost control. I walked past her again, heading for the stairs. She followed, still pleading, still clinging to hope. I told her I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to yell, wasn't going to argue, wasn't going to waste another second trying to make sense of what she had done. I was just done. She stood frozen in the hallway as I walked into the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and threw it onto the bed. This was over. She could cry. She could beg. She could say whatever she wanted. None of it mattered. She had taken everything we had and shattered it beyond repair. And now, she would pack her bags and leave. Just like she should have the moment she let another man touch what was never his to claim. The suitcase sat open on the bed, untouched. She stood motionless, staring at it, as if filling it meant sealing her fate. Her body trembled, her fingers twitching at her sides, like she was on the verge of some grand realization, as if suddenly understanding the weight of everything she had done. But it was too late for revelations. She had spent months chasing something she thought she needed: attention, validation, admiration from a man who knew how to capture a woman's beauty, but not her loyalty. Now, she stood in the ruins of what she had built, surrounded by the wreckage of a marriage she had chosen to throw away. There was nothing left to salvage. She rubbed at her face, smearing mascara down her cheeks, breathing in short, frantic gasps. It was the look of someone trapped, someone desperately searching for an escape route that no longer existed. She glanced at me, waiting, maybe hoping for some sign of hesitation, some small crack in my armor. But there was nothing left to give her. She whispered something, though the words barely made sound. A plea, an excuse, a regret. None of it mattered. She had made her choices, had strayed too far from the life she claimed she wanted, and now she had to face what came next. She asked where she was supposed to go, as if expecting an answer that would absolve her of responsibility, as if expecting me to soften. That wasn't my burden. She had places she could go. Friends who had encouraged her, who had praised her photos, who had commented on how stunning she looked in another man's frame. Maybe they had a couch for her. Maybe Nathan did. Maybe she could wander, lost, until she found whatever it was she had been searching for when she let herself slip away from the woman she used to be. She just couldn't stay here. Her hands reached for the closet, moving stiffly, methodically, as she pulled out clothes and folded them into the suitcase. The movements were slow, deliberate, like a ritual she wasn't ready to complete. There was hesitation in every touch, every neatly packed item, as if the careful arrangement of her belongings might somehow put her life back in order. She looked around the room between each piece of clothing, taking in the bed we had shared, the framed wedding photo that still hung above the dresser, the small details that once made this place feel like home. But the warmth was gone, and nothing she did now could bring it back. Tears ran silently down her cheeks as she zipped the suitcase shut. The finality of the sound seemed to shake her, sending a fresh wave of panic through her fragile composure. She clutched the handle but didn't lift it, her fingers frozen around the worn leather. The weight of it all was pressing down on her now, a realization that had come too late to change anything. She turned toward me, eyes pleading for something I wasn't willing to give. Forgiveness, understanding, a second chance, things she no longer had a right to ask for. She wanted to know if this was really it, if there was any way to undo what had been done, if the love we had built over years could somehow withstand the destruction she had caused. But she had already let go long before this moment. She had let go the first time she stepped in front of his camera, the first time she sent him a message that she wouldn't have dared to send in front of me. She had let go when she allowed herself to become someone else, someone who needed more than what she had at home. Now, there was no saving what was already gone. She wanted to know if I would ever be able to look at her again without resentment, if time would soften the sharp edges of this betrayal. But resentment wasn't the problem. The real problem was the absence of feeling altogether. There was no love left to salvage, no affection to hold on to. The space where those things had once existed had been hollowed out, leaving only the weight of disappointment in its place. She wanted to hear that there was still a part of me that belonged to her. But there wasn't. She picked up the suitcase and stood motionless for a long moment, as if hoping for some last-minute reprieve, some indication that things could still be different. She hesitated in the doorway, looking back one last time, searching for a sign that she had not completely lost me. But she had. There was no goodbye, no parting words. There was nothing left to say. She stepped out of the house, leaving behind everything she had once been, everything she had destroyed. I didn't follow. I didn't watch her go. I only stood there, staring at the space she had left behind, feeling nothing at all. For the first time in what felt like forever, I breathed. The silence in the house was suffocating. The moment the door closed behind her, the weight of everything settled in, thick and unmoving. The air felt different, stagnant, heavy. For years, this had been our home, a place filled with laughter, arguments, whispered conversations in the dark, and now it felt like nothing more than an empty shell. She was gone, and despite the storm she had left in her wake, despite the betrayal and the lies, the finality of it still felt surreal. I stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the spot where she had last been. My hands curled into fists at my sides, not from anger, but from the sheer force of holding myself together. My mind replayed every moment leading up to this. The discovery, the confrontation, the desperate way she had tried to convince me that what she had done wasn't as bad as it seemed. But it had been. She had let another man see her in ways that were meant only for me. She had given away pieces of herself, pieces of our marriage, in exchange for flattery and validation. And for what? A fleeting thrill? A handful of photographs and whispered compliments? She had burned everything we built for nothing. I forced my feet to move, walking aimlessly through the house. Each room felt foreign now, a collection of memories that no longer belonged to me. The living room, where we had spent countless nights watching movies, curled up on the couch. The kitchen, where she used to hum under her breath while making coffee in the morning. The bedroom, where her scent still lingered on the pillows. Everything was the same, and yet everything was different. I found myself in front of the dresser, staring at the framed wedding photo, still sitting there. My hand hovered over it for a second before I picked it up. In the picture, she was smiling, eyes bright with happiness. I looked different too, lighter, younger, like a man who still believed in forever. Now, that man no longer existed. I set the frame face down. The buzzing of my phone pulled me from my thoughts. More messages, more missed calls. Her name appeared on the screen again, but I let it ring. There was nothing she could say that I hadn't already heard. Instead, I checked social media. The fallout from my post had only grown. The comments section was a battlefield, filled with people taking sides. Some called me bitter, immature for exposing her. Others called her selfish, a woman who had thrown away a good man for cheap attention. And then, there were the ones who had their own stories, their own betrayals, their own warnings. More screenshots had surfaced. Messages from Nathan to other women, married women, women who had likely fallen for the same charm she had. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had been one of many. I wondered if she had known that. If she had believed she was special, that she was the only one. Or if deep down, she had known exactly what kind of man he was and had let it happen anyway. Either way, she had played herself. And now, she was the one left with nothing. I scrolled through my messages. Some from friends, checking in. Some from people I hadn't spoken to in years, offering support, or just hungry for more details. And then, buried between them all, a message from someone unexpected. Nathan. I opened it. A weak attempt at an apology. A paragraph of hollow words about how he never meant for things to go this far. How he respected me as a man. How he was deeply sorry for the pain this caused. A pathetic plea for me to stop fueling the fire, because now his own reputation was taking a hit. I almost laughed. This wasn't about regret. This was about damage control. He hadn't cared when he was sneaking around with my wife. He hadn't cared when he was posing her in his photos, framing her like she was something to be claimed. But now that people were dragging his name through the mud, now he wanted to apologize. I didn't respond. I deleted the message, blocking his number. Let him drown in the mess he had made. A deep breath filled my lungs as I tossed my phone onto the table. I could feel exhaustion settling into my bones, not the kind that sleep could fix, but the kind that came from having your entire life ripped apart in a matter of days. I needed to clear my head. I grabbed my keys and stepped outside, inhaling the crisp evening air. The sky was darkening, streaks of deep orange fading into the horizon. The world hadn't stopped turning just because my marriage had crumbled. Maybe that was the worst part, the realization that life kept moving, even when you wanted it to pause. I stood there for a long time, letting the cool air settle over me. The anger was still there, simmering under the surface, but it wasn't as sharp now. The betrayal still stung, but it wasn't as suffocating. Eventually, the pain would dull. The memories would fade. And one day, this wouldn't be the thing that defined me. She had chosen her path. Now, I had to choose mine. I wasn't going to be the man who spent years carrying the weight of someone else's mistakes. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. She had burned it all down, but I would be the one to rise from the ashes.